manifestations are many. And constitutional mutilation is one of those, as you rightly say. But I honestly feel the most urgent is for me not even the constitution and all these things that we are talking about. The most urgent must be, we must address the balkanization of the alternative. Because you see, all these things will be easy to solve if the alternative speaks one language. Because you see, it does not matter, Ango, to address these manifestations before we address ourselves. There is a lot of division within the alternative. That's why you have 7 press conferences of people who have never talked before the conference because they've not resolved their own differences. So honestly, with immediate effect is a genuine unity of the alternative, which is going to be the weakness of the regime, because when the alternative begins to speak one language, so that is for me very urgent, because what happens when you have those discredited processes and so forth is that there's going to be continuous work to balkanize the alternative so that at least we don't speak one language and we don't speak with one voice. So what I say, Ango, is that I do not think that we must unite around a manifestation. Why? Manifestations come and go. Let me give you an example. There was something called Vienna Settlement in history when the European powers met to deal with the problem of Napoleon Bonaparte after the Bonaparte Wars, for those who started the foreign policy of Napoleon Bonaparte. And they united around that. Now, Napoleon was dead and he was no longer there. You realize that there was a problem within the Vienna Settlement because they had united around an individual. And in the absence of that individual, there was no more reason for unity. I think that Zimbabweans in the alternative must unite not around a manifestation. They must firstly unite around the root cause, which is long-term, whether Mnangagwa extend the term or does not extend the term. There is a fight that needs to be fought in Zimbabwe of a citizen-centered, nation-centered government. That doesn't, whether he changes the term or he says, guys, I want to leave in 2028, I'm okay. That fight remains. It's the fight that Morgan Tsvangirai died for. When he's in his grave today, he's not going to thank us because we've just dealt with this term issue. He seeks to see that government, and that's what he died for. That must be the area of unity, and the alternative must be formed on such. Why? So that we don't form a reactionary alternative that always works on the schedule of what the regime does. We have a clear revolutionary alternative that has a goal which is not predicated by what the regime does. It is not just a reactionary or an opposition thing. It's a true alternative focusing on a clear agenda, number one. Now, these manifestations, you are going to also see that there's something that we call manifestations of a political organization. So when we are united, then we can then begin to have some of our people, for example, from that same movement of a governance crisis, for example, enter into civil society and do certain work that they are doing around the constitution. Some in universities conscientizing young people to have the right mindset about the crisis in the country. Some in human rights organizations, some in other, but you belong to one big family. Instead of uniting around a crisis, what if Mnangagwa wakes up and say, I'm a constitutionalist for sure, I'm not taking this thing? Have we succeeded? No, we have not. Even if ZANU-PF brings another person, there's no success there. Success is always, people must not forget that governance crisis, which goes beyond Mnangagwa or any other person. It's a serious crisis that has to be fought. That for me, Ango, I think it's urgent that the alternative is united around a long-term and root cause of the crisis. Now, right. It can go and fight. Just let me land here.
Okay, fine.
It can go and fight manifestations, and whether lose or win, but still come back to a thing that is bigger than just a challenge of today. Because these things of uniting around, I'll give you an example. We have united before around elections. Chamisa, we betrayed him ourselves when he has entered there and elections are over. Where is the opposition? We are no longer anywhere. Why? It was an electoralist unity that was focusing on elections. And when you lose those elections, who do you become? You are now waiting for other 5 years. 2028, guys. Why? You are around an issue that is temporary. You need an issue that is permanent, that even if Morgan Tsvangirai dies, we will bury him in Boera, but say, comrade, we leave you here, but we are continuing on this struggle because it has nothing to do with you on the ballot. It has everything to do with good governance in our country. Let's go to the constitutional mutilation. Even if Mnangagwa wakes up and says, I want to go to precab farm and do farming, comrade, we live here doing farming. We know there is Chwenga in office. The crisis is not done. We will continue. We live here. Your pension is here. Enjoy your precab. But the crisis remains. That's what the alternative must do, not this opportunistic unity that comes around issues that come and go. And when those issues are no longer there, we go back home with nothing to talk about. I think that is urgent to me. The unity of the alternative around the genuine problem, which is long-term, not being reactionary and creating things that disappear when people need them the most.
Right. Yeah, excellent. So, I mean, just staying on this, the historical bit in terms of the roots of the crisis. You've mentioned that, the alternative, is tried, to come together to consolidate, to consolidate, to do political, consolidation, etc., etc. When we look back at these, historical, moments, looking at them, I don't know if you have, looked into some of these things. What
Yes,
exactly went wrong when we were trying to do this political consolidation in the alternative? That which
yes,
need not to be done again.
yes. With respect of course, for those who have participated in those, they must know that I don't undermine efforts, because the day they formed MDC, when they were forming MDC, some of us, our mothers, were carrying us in their wombs, giving birth to us. And today we are here debating and articulating these things. So we might also not have, the exact things as those who were there. But of course, I can't also blame myself for being in my mother's womb. I think I was in a loins also participating in those days. So what I wanted I looked at some of those events. So Ango, I said Zimbabwe has a governance crisis,
Right.
a crisis of legitimacy, a crisis around how do we select those that govern us in a free, credible manner that reflects the will, the authority, and the choice of the citizens. We have a problem of discredited and disputed national processes that builds discredited and disputed national outcomes, that builds a discredited and disputed government that percolates and that infiltrates and percolates into state institutions, whereby people no longer trust their institutions. Today we have parliament, but people don't trust it because these issues of legitimacy, it's not just about the president, it's about the infiltration and the percolation of such into institutions that matter, where people no longer trust their own institution. The death of legitimacy, the death of social contract. So that, for me, is a serious crisis that needs to be resolved. Bigger than 2018, bigger than 2023, bigger than 2008. It stretches back into history. So that's, for me, as long as that crisis for me is not resolved, all other sectoral interventions are going to be let down by such. So I'll give you, for example, so there are few I've picked to try and demonstrate the argument that I'm trying to make. So there is the Constitution, for example. Let's talk about it. 2013.
Yes.
What a good achievement of the alternative, to come up with the Constitution for our country, Bill of Rights there. We have our rights in the Constitution, presidential limits in the Constitution, separation of powers, and all these things. But you know what, Ango? I read that Constitution when I was doing my master's at Nelson Mandela School of Governance. Very good. Of course, there are certain areas. I saw Mutis posted Madugu's critique of the Constitution. There are some things that he raised there that are also problematic about Constitution. But we can discuss that. Let's say at least better, right? Or good. Let's maybe not say excellent, because there is always a room for us to do better. And I think it was a good foundational document that lays out people's rights, separation of powers, and all these things.